Hi everyone. Good evening, good morning. To whichever part of the world that you are joining us from, and thank you so much for your time. I'm very happy to be back here with GMAT Club for another wonderful session on MBA application strategies. I do hope all of you who are joining us from whatever part of the world you find this conversation, some of these discussions extremely useful. And there's always an option to reach out to me after the session. Okay. Now we have a lot of ground to cover, so in the interest of time, I am going to get started. Okay. Um, so today we are going to speak about comprehensive MBA application strategy for 2022, right? I will be your host. My name is Preeti Wadekar, and I head the MBA admissions consulting practice at the Red Pen. Before we proceed, I would like to share something about the Red Pen. We are a higher education consulting company focused on education in across the world, in based out of Mumbai, India, and we service clients around the world. And specifically talking about MBA, we have about a great acceptance rate of 95% for people who sign up with us for 5 schools or more. They do receive offers to their top 2 choice programs. In the last admissions cycle, we had over $1 million of scholarships, and recently concluded cycle, it's been $1.5 million. And our focus is usually the global top 25, 30 programs between US and Europe. So if one of those programs is on your list, then we are the right people to partner with on your application journey. um, these are some of our admits, final admits, in 2020, 2021. And these are our admits from 2021, 22. Okay. Now, all right. Now, this is today's agenda, right? We are going to basically focus on application strategy for the 2023 intake. So when you're applying in 2022, that's what this means. Okay, because this is for round one, fall 2022 submission deadlines, and round two, fall 20 in January. So this is the agenda that we're going to cover. We're going to shortlist. I'm going to speak about how to shortlist dream, target, and safety schools. I'm going to speak a little bit about application forms, something which is very important but not doesn't receive due attention very much until the last day of submission. I'll speak a bit about how to research business schools. This can be a session in itself, but I'll try my best to cover as much ground as possible. I'll speak about resume, LinkedIn profile, LORs, essays, and a little blurb about the MBA interview, though it is really far out. All right. So let's get started. Now, you may have seen this slide in my presentations, in other presentations as well. This is my favorite slide. It gives a snapshot of um, what elements of your profile are being evaluated by admissions officers at top business schools, right? At the bottom of the pyramid, you have your academic potential. In your academic potential, you're going to be assessed by your undergraduate institution, undergraduate subject selection, undergraduate GPA, the GMAT or the GRE score, and the breakup of that GMAT and GRE score. If you come from non-business backgrounds, I always recommend that in addition to your GMAT and GRE, you can always take the MBA math, and or the HBS score, or also the wanted business fundamentals course, which is available on Coursera. It shows that you're ready for business school, right? If you're coming from highly technical backgrounds or completely non-business backgrounds. Your work experience, which is showcased through your resume, goals, which is showcased through your essays, your demonstrated leadership and extracurricular activities, which is showcased on your application forms and resume, and your fit with the program, the overall holistic assessment, what we talk about, right? Now, let's talk a little bit about okay, let's talk a little bit about, sorry, I'm just keeping a tab on the comments, if I have any question which I can take. But I will take questions at the end as well, right? So these are the key milestones for round one 2022 applications. um, Taking the standardized test, refining your goals, pursuing additional work opportunities and coursework. Now this is the time where you should ideally be stepping up at work and not scaling back at work. This is a time when you should ideally be taking on more leadership responsibilities, getting, going after that promotion. It's we're still about a good 4 5 months away, but every day counts, right? Every opportunity, every mentorship opportunity that you take up, every leadership opportunity that you take up, every complex project that you take up at work, that's going to count. So to pursue those additional opportunities from now until the time that you submit your application, your resume can be updated right until the final day. Okay, so focus on adding more meat and more content to your resume. Don't just do your resume one time and then just submit it. Just keep a tab on all the professional updates. Engagement with schools. At this point of time, you should also be engaging with different schools, signing up on the website, attending events. If you're working with consultants, your consultant should know, if they are members of the AGAC, they would know what events are happening, and they should be sharing all these events with you. Attend those events, engage meaningfully with schools. Do send a short thank you note after you attend an event. If you're really, it's a recruitment process at the end of the day. um, Resume updating, storyboarding and essays, identifying LOR strategy. So we will come into go to into deeper discussions about each of the components. These are like broad timelines for your application, right? So at this point of time, as you see, we are in the month of April. You should ideally be working on your standardized test or already have it out of the way. You should be refining your post MBA goals. You should be pursuing additional work opportunities, researching business schools, and engaging with schools. That's what you should need to be doing right now. In the final point on LORs, I just want to make sure that you understand that at this point of time, you need to be identifying your recommenders and at least start to have those discussions with them. That the initial preliminary round of discussions as to, I will be applying to business school, and I would be interested in knowing if you would write me a recommendation, and stuff like that. And we'll come to the LOR strategy just in a bit. But these are sort of the broad timelines. All right. um all right. Now, shortlisting dream, target, and safety schools. Now, this is, I think, this slide and the next slide, I think I can just go on talking for an entire hour for this. The step one to shortlist these schools is self reflection, right? First, this is a business school application. So your career and your resume come first before anything else, right? Right from your undergraduate, you don't need to go prior to your undergraduate. Your undergraduate and your career that immediately follows right up until the time that you apply to business school. So you need to first take a step back and conduct an honest assessment as to what is it that you want for yourself, right? um, this in as much as this has been repeated by admissions officers and consultants across the world, many people just miss this step completely, which will backfire in your applications, right? um, if you conduct a career assessment, you can do this with a career coach, which is what my recommendation would be, because as a certified career coach, I know the value that a career coach brings to the table. So apart from an MBA admissions consultant, also you can work with a career coach, career counselor. If you are confused, if you are a private equity, candidate in a pre MBA analyst role, then does it just makes sense for you to logically just go to business school um, and pursue your MBA. But if not, you will be asked that question as to why MBA, why now. So this is a time to really, really understand what your career goals are, right? And where are the gaps? Like if you are right now where you are, if you where do you see yourself 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and write down answers to these questions, guys. It is you will be surprised what the act of writing actually does. You can also note these things down on a Word document. If you're like pen and paper is like so 60s, if you feel that, then sure. Write it down on a word, note it down on a word document. But the act of noting things down, putting your thoughts out of your head onto paper or onto a word document, does have a profound effect on the clarity of your thinking. Okay, so write those things down. For some people it's literally as simple as, oh, I have an American dream. It could be as simple, but you need to have that honesty and authenticity with yourself. Okay, before you even decide that, oh, I just need to apply to these M7 schools. um, the other thing to, once you identify the career gaps, there are 6 reasons why you need to do an MBA, right? Why people usually go to do an MBA, which are assessed by admissions officer. There are these some of the reasons, because how will business school admissions officers otherwise assess you? They will have parameters. These are the parameters. And I must call out London Business School. London Business School had actually put down this list on one of their posts, I think almost a year or 2 years back. So I think, um, thank you for that. And I completely agree with this. So, leadership development, career acceleration, career transition, access to global or enhanced networks, entrepreneurial aspirations. If you want to have your own startup, you want to be an entrepreneur, learn business tools, and global exposure and experience. If you are like, I've done all this at a domestic scale, I want to build international networks and pursue international opportunities. Now, where do your reasons fit given those career gaps? Just do this little small exercise. Just do that, right? If you've not already done so, if you don't have that clarity, that is. um, the next sub step in self reflection is understanding yourself to build an authentic narrative. Now, time and again, and we work with a lot of applicants around the world. um, I will say that, a lot of time the narrative is very similar, and we work with more Indian applicants uh, around the world. So, especially if you're an Indian, who's joined the call and listening to this, just listen very carefully, because we see the same narrative, the cookie cutter, narrative in essay after essay after essay for different schools. And I'm sorry, I'm not really being very politically correct here, but um, you need to differentiate yourself, and you need to learn to differentiate yourself. And admissions officers are, they're trained readers. They've been doing this for like 15 years, 18 years. They can sniff, something from a mile away. If they're reading the same thing 55 times over, I mean, it's not going to, you're not going to grab their attention. The first step to do understand this is what makes you who you are. How are you truly unique? Now, this is a story building exercise which many consultants do. And at the Red Pen, the way we do this is through a very, very detailed and exhaustive questionnaire that we have built and we have developed over the years. The key over here is identifying a set of self reflective questions, asking yourself the right questions, which, if you see that I've put a screenshot of one of the questionnaires that we use. um, and identifying themes and patterns across your early childhood, school, college, and career experiences. So throughout your entire life journey, in your personal and professional life, there will be some key themes and patterns which will emerge, which tells you and the admissions officers, who you are. And then you get a thread to build your narrative around that. And how do you build that narrative and how do you position that narrative comes much later through the essay development process, right? But this understanding who you are and identifying these themes and patterns across different stages of your life, in personal and professional life, these are, from my perspective, very key strategic tips that you should explore, if you've not already started. Step 2 is school research criteria. Choosing fit over rankings, very important. Almost 7 out of 10 people that I speak to in any given year only want to apply to brand name schools, because so if you are one of those, you can you can perhaps understand what I'm talking about. that oh, I need to go to business school because I need to be recognized. When I walk into a room, I want to say that I went to Harvard Business School, and everyone just takes notice. But that's not the right way to choose a school. And I'm just repeating this over and over again, because you may not care about what the school is on all the parameters which I have listed on screen, but the school cares. The school cares whether you care or not. So they're going to assess your application to understand that does this person really get us. So this is a checklist, okay? Take a note of this checklist, and the recording will be available later, so you can also view this, and you can pause the recording, and you can take down this list down. But if you have, let's say, 10 schools on your list, make a Google sheet, or your Microsoft Excel sheet, whatever, and just have different tabs for each school, or you can do this in one spreadsheet as well, and just make a massive spreadsheet with all these bullet points on one side and all the schools on the top. And as you are attending events at school, speaking with current students, speaking with alums, signing up for multiple club events which are hosted by schools for prospective applicants, write down your observations. Yeah, what is it about the curriculum which really attracts you? About their formats, right? Do they have specialization? Do you want a specialization, or do you want to be like, oh, I like the format of booth, which is just one course is compulsory, everything else is what you structure. Internship opportunities, a school like Columbia will allow you to do in semester internships. Some other schools will not allow that. Do you prefer a smaller class size? Do you prefer classes which have more international diversity, like INSEAD? What are the alumni benefits? Like at Columbia, you have a lifetime auditing feature. At any point of time, if I'm in New York, I can write to I can check what are the classes which are going on. I can go and sit and audit a class. So what are those benefits? What are those features? What is the strength and the reach of geographical location of alumni networks? The older the school, the stronger and the larger the alumni network. So think about all these things very carefully. Cost is, of course, a consideration. Location is a very, very, very important consideration, which is really underplayed in many applications. And I see that time and again. Okay. Let me elaborate on that a little bit. For example, if you're applying to a US business school, no one really goes deeper to understand how is living in Michigan different from living in New York, different from living in Connecticut, different from living in Durham, for Fuqua. No one really understands that, or no one really tries to understand that. But having lived in the US for a really long time, I know that each of these states also are very different. The people over there are different. They're um, overall, of course, it's a whole American experience, but it's very different in New York, for example. When I lived there, and I went to Columbia. Every school will tell you that they have a collaborative network, and that is true. But collaboration is different across schools as well. The collaboration at Stanford may be very, very tight knit. Similar at Tuck, it will be very, very close knit and very tight knit community. At Columbia, sure, it's very collaborative also, but it's also very New York. So at the end of the day, um, my observation was always that New Yorkers always want their space, right? So sure, we were very collaborative, but at the end of the day, it's a different kind of collaboration, right? Now, how to know about these things? Try to understand a school and its location. Talk to people who've been there. Develop a set of questions. Okay, we help our applicants do that. Develop a set of questions and talk to current students and alumni. Ask the same questions to different people and see what their responses are. If you talk to an enough of a representative sample at each school, which I would say is a minimum 25 people, guys, and that might sound too much, but this is a very expensive investment. So that's the least that you can start with. So if you're talking to 25 people at each school, you will spot patterns across answers that different people give if you ask the right questions. Okay. So you should, you should be doing this exercise right now. at this point of time in the month of April. By June, you should be ready with your information. By June, you should have all the information about your narrative and about information on schools for you to craft that application in over 3 months time, like let's say July, August, and early September, right? All right, so I think I've spent a lot of time on these two slides, right? um, Now moving on, application forms. Again, a very very ignored aspect of a business school application is what we have seen, but a very important one. Schools are trying to understand, key aspects of your candidature, which is why they carefully craft the application form. For example, Booth will ask you what are your. They may not ask you exactly in other parts, but there's a line in the application form saying what are your goals, right? You need to have an answer, a very specific answer, right? It's going to backfire if you don't think about this strategically and just try to fill that based on whatever your discussions you had with your consultant, like just one day before the submission deadline. Colombia has a space in the application form which says that how many have you spoken with, which events have you attended, if at all? Did you attend any events? Yes. If yes, which were those? Right. So imagine if you're like filling this up a week before the deadline, and you're like, okay, now I need to know if I did not attend any events, or did I attend enough events. So people ask these questions to us, but I attended only two. So I always say that I think we recommend this at the Red Pen, basically, that once your storyboarding and everything is done, open your account on respective school websites which are on your target list, and do start going through application forms. Once application forms are open for the season, we do have our own repository of subjective questions on the application form, and that is something we help with as a part of the application even before you begin writing essays, right? So you understand strategically what is the school asking for. If there is a section in the application form that allows you to describe your employer, you don't need to describe your employer in the resume. You can use that space for for other things. Now the form also has detailed questions such as your short essay questions. Check the accuracy of details in the form, like waivers to LORs, etc., right? um all right. um so look for those kind of accuracy, look for those details as well, and open your accounts on the school websites and review the subjective questions on the application forms, right? Now, other the important aspect of an application is writing a standout resume. A resume is actually the meat and the crux of a business school application. It is what is going to be picked up by the adcoms first to see the strength of your candidature, right? Now there can be an entire session that we can talk about resume, but I'm just going to focus right now, in the interest of time, I'm going to focus on quick tips that you need to understand. One is the aesthetics and the structure. Resume needs to be one page. Do not go beyond one page unless you're applying for an executive MBA, right? Otherwise, stick for regular data MBA, stick to one page. Focus on impact. In each of the work experience section, do not rattle off a list of job responsibilities. I do this, and this. Sure, but the resume is a marketing document, not a legal document. Also look at soft skills, identify those soft skills. An ideal MBA candidate is someone who's a team player, right? They showcase leadership skills. How did you navigate certain complex projects, and what did you do? What was your impact? How did you turn things around? And last is analytical skills. You need to quantify that impact as much as possible and show your analytical rigor through the multiple projects that you handled. There's a whole lot that I can talk about people whose careers are not analytical. Let's say you're non technical careers, non engineering, non finance. But I think that will warrant a separate discussion in itself. But as much as possible, if you're not able to provide a quantitative impact, try to provide a qualitative impact at least, right? Who was impacted by your actions, and what was the scale of the impact? These are some of the key aspects in a resume. I just spoke about them in the earlier slide, but I'll just cover those which I did not. Um, do include a one line description of your organization unless there is space in the application form to already do that. If that is there in the application form, then do not repeat it in the resume. Use the resume to include other things. Arrange the bullet points in the decreasing order of impact with the most significant accomplishments at the top. Begin your bullet points with strong action words: led, managed, supervised, or created. Do use these. Start the bullet with action word. Do not start bullet points with the words responsible for. Okay, it's very passive, and it is nothing but a job responsibility. So what we don't want is, we may want to make a description, a differentiation between a job description and a resume. So this is not a job description, this is a resume. So we have to focus on your accomplishments and impact, right? Focus on demonstrating leadership capabilities such as negotiation, influence, stakeholder management, conflict resolution. There'll be many things which you will write in your essays, many stories which will bring about these qualities. But the idea is, when in the very early slide, where I showed the entire MBA wedding cake, the admissions committee is looking to evaluate all those parameters across different application components, like application forms, resume, LORs, essays. So make use of that space judiciously. Even if you write one particular example in the essay, you can write a different example showing different leadership capabilities in the resume. So don't negate that. You have to give as much information about yourself, all the amazing things that you have done through these different application components, and use the resume really, really well. Do not just finish it for the heck of it and only focus on essays. You will be surprised that how much attention your resume really receives in a business school application. All right, now your LinkedIn profile. This is my favorite. So what we do, at least at the Red Pen, and I do not have any official information about this, so I cannot be quoted, but so I don't know if business school admissions officers do look at your LinkedIn profile, but we go in assuming that they do. At the Red Pen, we go in assuming that they do. So we help not only with your resume, but we also help with your LinkedIn profile development. um, why? Because in a world of social media, I don't want to advise an applicant that you will not be googled, or what your social media presence is. Now here I'm talking just about LinkedIn, but a school might just google your name, right? So be careful about um, what your social media presence is. Sometimes people will say in their MBA application that I want to move into consulting, but when you go to the LinkedIn profile, they're following a bunch of private equity firms, and all their engagement on social media is about the private equity industry. That's contradicting, right? So showcase a business leader professional presence on your LinkedIn profile, right? The way we help with a LinkedIn profile review is primarily from a business school application perspective and not from a job search perspective. So there are many things on which you can do on LinkedIn, but this is restricted solely to a business school application, right? So what we recommend is, keep your profile complete, have a professional photograph, have just one LinkedIn profile, not multiple. Don't have aliases, with multiple names, and this is for business school, this is for job search. Don't do that. Add the LinkedIn public profile URL to your resume. It's a social platform for business purposes, so engage with audiences accordingly. Try to develop thought leadership. If you're very passionate about a particular your post MBA goals and industry and your current job, join those industry groups and contribute in those groups. These things are maybe small, but they're noticed, right? Add volunteer experiences, interests, align whatever you are have written in your resume with your LinkedIn profile in those additional sections. In fact, you can also use your LinkedIn profile to include things. If there was not much space in the application form and the resume, you can include those things in your LinkedIn profile as well, and add a URL of that to your resume. Sometimes recommendations do add weight, and this is an often overlooked aspect. But I strongly recommend clients of the Red Pen that try to get recommendations on LinkedIn as well. Yeah, if they corroborate together with what your recommender writes for MBA recommendations, then that will be absolutely great for your candidature, right? You have to strengthen your candidature um, in as many ways as possible, and in my professional opinion, this could be also one of the ways to do that. All right, this is a big one. We have two slides on business school essays, and honestly, I actually am just a very small piece of what we do at the Red Pen in terms of business school essays. But I wish our head of content Natasha was here, and she could just say so many amazing things and so many amazing takeaways in terms of craft how to craft your narrative. But these are two slides which I've stolen from her repository, and I hope I do justice. But business school essays, first is understand what is the purpose of an essay in a business school application. Like I said, in my professional opinion, the resume is number one. um, I have yet to see that someone just gets admitted to business school because they wrote amazing essays, but they have a very um, sloppy profile, for lack of a better word. um, so business school essays need to provide um, complementary information which strengthens your already strong profile, right? So building that profile is one thing, and then conveying that information through business school essays is another. Finding your voice, this is another thing which is important. Please do not write, do not um, get a consultant to write your essays. Please do not. Okay, and I am willing to you know get on a session like this and literally only to say this 100 times over again. Time and again we get applicants who want to tell us that I am not a good writer, please can you write this for me? And I am like, you are actually digging your own grave by asking someone to write your essays. You are actually harming your own application. um so never do that, never do that. Schools are not looking for perfect writers. This is not an English literature test. But can you communicate as a business leader? Now who are business leaders? Look at business leaders around you, right? In your industry you may have the CFO or CEO of your company. How do they talk? Are they like it's maybe business lingo, but is it like just perfect? Are they narrating movie scripts or something, perfect dialogues? Possibly not. Find your voice. A story which is told from the heart is always well received. I'll also share one more example of when I was reading, I was listening to a I think an interview of one of these popular authors. And she said that when I write a book, I mean, the question to her was, how do you get your audience so well? So she said, it's interesting that you say that, because when I write my book, I only picturize a certain friend of mine, and I visualize that I'm talking to the friend, right? And I write accordingly, and maybe that just comes across. My advice, taking a cue from this, my advice is, when you attend events at business schools, get to know the admissions officers. Who are the people who are going to be evaluating your profile? Think of that person and then write your essay. Okay. The problem is many people write in a way that, maybe I write this and hopefully it will fly, but I am not sure where I stand. Don't be in that space. If you have done the earlier steps right in terms of self reflection and getting your narrative right, think about this admissions officer who's sitting in front of you, And this is, a do or die situation. You have one shot to get that application right. What is it that you will tell this person? And this is something you have to do for yourself, no matter which consultant you work with. You have the most successful applicants that we have worked with the Red Pen have been those who have been in the driver's seat themselves. We, of course, help them in terms of giving this information and giving them the tools and the strategies, how to go about this. But find your voice, okay, and build a unique evidence-based narrative. At the end of the day, you must have heard this time and again on by multiple consultants as well as admissions officers, that show don't tell, right? You have to back up your claims with examples. A trust me approach is not going to work. If you say, that, oh, I have worked in consulting all my life, and but in my heart of hearts I always wanted to be in sports, so I'm going to come to business school, and you guys will help me get into my sports career. It's not going to work. There's no evidence to show that you have done anything to take your interest in sports to the next level. And business school is not magically going to sprinkle some sort of pixie dust and transform your career overnight. They want to see what is your plan. So you will need to build that evidence based narrative across different essay components: written essays, video essays, right? Now there are four different types of essays. There is a goal statement. There are some personal expositions where, what are your values, what is your brand of leadership, what matters to you, the Stanford essay, few quiz essay on 25 random things. There are motivational essays like we see with INSEAD, and there are certain unique prompts like, Stern's essay, Pick Six essay, or the Spike Factor essay by Rotman. Now, this session is not enough for us to cover everything in detail. But by the way, we at the Red Pen will be covering. We are leading a webinar series starting 14th of May. So do go to our website and sign up for the webinar series. In that, we will be taking one application component, diving really deep into it, and providing really solid, strong information, which should help you. If you're working on your own without a consultant, you should be able to uh, utilize that information when you're working on your application. So do sign up for that on our events page on the Red Pen's website. And there, I think, you will get more information about how to approach each of these individual essays, right? What should your thought process really be like, right? All right, now common mistakes. Actually, this should not be just one slide. This should be like two slides. Uh, but these are the most common mistakes. Unclear post MBA goals. Um, you do not really need a business degree to do business, right? So why an MBA is the one of the most important questions that you will ever answer in your business school application. Like I said, if you are in a pre-MBA analyst role as a private equity applicant, your post MBA goal is like pretty clear. But that's not the case for most people. And if you're applying from big four firms, if you're applying from large consulting firms, you are going to be even more in of an overrepresented category. So you really need to understand about these what your goals really are, right? um, Generic statements, please don't. There is actually a list of keywords which we just discussed today, that which you can actually spot in like 100 essays. So don't use those generic. And here I think try to get the help of some someone from your friends, family, someone who has been to business school before. An admissions consultant is what I would recommend, because they often have first hand information what is required. But anyone, if you're not working with a consultant still, but try to at least get someone to read, to understand what the tone of your narrative is. However, do not solicit feedback for your essay from multiple sources. Please don't do that. This is another thing which I've seen backfire. I've seen people work with us, and we still work in teams. There are like some five people, who are assigned to one consultant, at least at the red pen, because we really want to cover all bases, and we have a lot of specialists who work with you. Even then, we have some applicants who will take, who will say, oh, my friend's saying this, my so and so is saying this. Sure, take feedback, but know where you stand, right? If you don't know what is good for you, you will be pulled in all different directions, and that's going to reflect in your application, right? My most favorite business school essay mistake is not answering the prompt. And this is something I learned when I transitioned over as an MBA admissions consultant, that this is something that you can miss. And time and again, I have heard admissions officers talk about this. Answer the damn question. Sometimes people will answer everything but what is asked. The number one test, which is why we have review processes at the Red Pen. Not only does your consultant work with you, but me and the head of content, we review. There's a second level of review, there's a third level of review. So when we read it, we are like, no, this doesn't make sense. Sometimes two people too close to an application can also, lose perspective. So that review really, really helps. So make sure you're answering what is asked. Read the question very, very carefully. Case in point, MIT. MIT Sloan asks for a business correspondence style cover letter. I can tell you 9 out of 10 instances I have read the first draft, which sounds like an essay and not a business correspondence style cover letter. Because none of us is used to writing, cover letters. We don't even know what to write in cover letters. As a career coach, I know that cover letter has a format. There are certain things you need to know. A cover letter, when it goes with the resume, what is it supposed to convey? So understand these very small, minor things, but read them again and again. London Business School, INSEAD, read those prompts very carefully. um, Another thing is, guessing what admissions officers are looking for. Let me guess. Wharton looks for finance professionals, and Columbia looks for these kind of people, and this is looking for tech and that. No, no, no. Or maybe they want to hear this, so maybe I do this. No, no. Do not guess what admissions officers are looking for. Look for an authentic story and narrative. But at the end of the day, authenticity doesn't mean that you be truthful to an extent that you are that someone sees you that no, this is not going to work. You have to be authentic. And at the end of the day, it's a marketing exercise. So always, if you want to be successful as an MBA applicant, start thinking as a business leader, right? If you are leading a team of 2 to 3 people, 4 to 5 people, whatever, if you have to deliver a difficult message, how will you do? If you have to communicate with them, how will you do? Will you be very truthful, say everything? Probably not. You will decide, right? You will strategize that this is my objective, this is an overarching message I need to give. Based on this objective, these are the things from my authentic narrative which I will put forward, right? So think about those things. And then there are multiple writing mistakes, like using passive voice, being very verbose, very unstructured narratives. So this year what we are doing is, year over year we have refrained from sharing essays of our clients, because we are bound by confidentiality and we do not share actual essays of our clients. But time and again, because we feel that, that totally kills an applicant's voice. Many people will just take it as it is, and just, kind of copy paste it. So we, and on the other hand, believe in putting in the effort to help you find that voice and differentiate yourself. But what we are doing this year is we are putting essay guidance together for top 25 schools. For example, NYU Stern, right? Now, when you are applying to NYU Stern, there is this essay which is about pick six, that showcase what is it that you want, your future class to know about you in 6 pictures. Um, so sometimes people put it in a Word document. We recommend that you put it in a PowerPoint template. Now, when you put it in a PowerPoint template, it is only thoughtful that you use NYU Stern's brand colors. Does anyone even know what their brand colors are? Probably not. So those are the kind of tips we are planning to put in the essay guidance, and not just for Stern, of course, but across top 25 to 30 schools in US and Europe. These are things which will get, these are small things, but they do get attention, right? All right, that's about essays, and hopefully this at least helps to some extent. Letters of recommendation. Now, in the interest of time, I will wrap up letters of recommendation and interviews rather quickly. For strategy of letters of recommendation, first comes recommender selection. Now, you would be surprised, but I again, I would like to remind everyone: please register for our webinar series and attend it, because there's going to be an entire session on letters of recommendation. Believe it or not, when we have someone who's an LOR specialist, at the Red Pen, Anju, and when she conducted an in-house session for us, there were 26 slides. Believe it or not, that much. That's the kind of effort which goes into a letter of recommendation strategy. Um, should you write your own recommendation? No, please do not. Please do not do that. That is unethical, and do not ask your consultants to do that either. It is absolutely unethical to do that. Do not worry about the grammar and language and syntax if your recommender does not have perfect English. That's not what schools are looking for. What schools are looking for is how well does this recommender know you, to speak to your capabilities and your strengths, right? So do not go for designation. They don't care about that. Focus on impact, right? Focus on outcomes, achievements, multiple strengths. What are the leadership capabilities that you are showing in your letter of recommendation? Look at your application holistically. This is you as a candidate. There are some things you are telling them in the application form, some in resume, some in essays, some in LOR. How does the whole thing tie up? Are you talking about some very critical important project in your essays, but your recommender does not mention that project anywhere? So you need to identify your recommender. You need to have an honest and authentic conversation with this person, that this is my narrative, what is it that you think are my strengths. Have that conversation with them, an honest conversation. What do they think? At the end of the day, they are going to be submitting your recommendation, but identifying the right recommenders and having a conversation with them early in the cycle will save you a lot of grief later on. Please also remember that not all schools will allow recommenders to submit the letter of recommendation after the deadline is over. Okay, so you may be completely immersed in your essay writing bubble for like months together, and then wake up at the last minute and chase your recommenders to submit everything, like in 2 weeks. And they might have, if you come from consulting firms, for example, if they are writing recommendations for like five other people, then it doesn't work, right? So try to always start that process early on, because your recommender needs to, for most schools, they need to submit the letter of recommendation at the same time or before the deadline. Okay. um I think that's it. There's a GMAC for LOR format, which I don't want to go into details in, but it's about, there's a leadership assessment grid, some general information, recommendation questions. Some schools like Columbia need just one letter of recommendation. Do not submit additional information, is what they clearly said. London Business School says the same thing. Only provide information, only provide the number of recommendations that are asked, and nothing more. Um, the other point I wanted to say is, some schools will have additional questions, for letters of recommendation. For example, Stern has a question on EQ, because Stern is assessing you for EQ. So that EQ needs to come out not just through that one additional question in your LOR, but it needs to come out across different application components as well. Do you have a very high EQ, right? Um, so these are some of the LOR keywords. I would say, in if I had to just summarize the entire LOR discussion in just one slide, this would be it. These are some of the qualities about yourself that you need to showcase. Every school will look for collaboration, every school will look for leadership, but some of these others are subsets, and you should look at whether you are demonstrating examples which showcase these qualities. Don't just say I'm collaborative or so and so is collaborative and a great team player. Doesn't really work, right? You have to back it up with strong evidence based data. All right. So I'm not going to speak too much about the interview because now, at this point of time, I think we are very early on. But it does not hurt to think that the MBA interview is a very, very significant component in the entire decision making process. After the resume, if there's one thing I would say is very important, that's the interview. They're gonna You may come across amazing on paper, but if they see you and they're like they just dismiss you, that's something you may want to start working on beforehand. So while MBA interviews, there's a general purpose, situational, behavioral style questions. There are resume or industry related questions, or some interviews like Harvard Business School is completely, the interview is entirely resume based. Now, one thing I do want to say is what you need to make sure is in your don't start preparing for your interview only after you receive the interview call. That is too late. You need to come across as a business leader, right? When an admissions officer sees you, when they talk to you, when an alum talks to you, if they see you as one of them, there's a greater recommendation that you're going to go from interview to accepted and not interview to rejected or waitlist pile, right? So build on your executive presence. Most interviews, until last year were virtual. I don't know how it's going to come happen this year. Maybe we go back to doing in-person interviews at where alums are conducting most interviews across different business schools. So we don't know, but build that executive presence. Come across as someone um, who dresses professionally, who is boardroom ready, who has a very professional voice. At least these are smaller things, but they you have to start thinking about these things from now. And of course, you can start preparing about these questions as well. On and off, that it's definitely not going to hurt, right? Um, you do have to look at when you're preparing, what is the content, how are you going to structure your answers, and how are you going to deliver. I just spoke about that in a little bit. But like I said, if you attend our webinar series, we will be doing the interview session after round one deadlines are done. And hopefully you get more information about this. In fact, I had done a Columbia interview prep session last year with GMAT Club. And if you go to GMAT Club's YouTube channel, you will see some of the general interview preparation tips which I had shared. Um, well, that's it from me. And I think I've taken almost an hour. So if there are any questions, um, I'm happy to take them right now. All right. Okay, thank you, Sandy. Thank you as well. Thanks for thanking me. Um, I have a question here from Alberto, which says importance of ECs in application. I can demonstrate leadership interpersonal qualities to my work experience, but I don't hold any leadership position. Yeah, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Many people who are applying to business school are in the you know um, you know 4 to 5 years of experience. So it's totally fine if you don't have the title, if that's what you mean. That's totally fine, right? And thank you, Alberto, for I hope you found this session useful. Do feel free to write to me. This is the email if you have any follow-up questions. Even after, if you listen to this webinar once again, if you have any questions, do feel free to write to me at this email address. um, Let me just scroll up if I missed any questions. One second. um, uh, okay. Okay, Faizan. Hi, Faizan. I'm a pilot licensed on the Airbus 320. Very nice. Complete my training 2021. Working on scaling up my low scale event management business. 5 years. Does my flight training help my profile? Sure, it does. Every single bit helps your profile. Every single bit. Nothing is waste. The thing is, is it useful to your overall candidature? That is the question. You can obviously demonstrate traits that you have learned as a pilot. Many people, who have, let's say, been active sports people throughout high school, and they have led teams, they always talk about, we get them to at least talk about all the amazing life skills and leadership skills that they learned on field, which they are able to translate to their workplace. And that, and the quality, those qualities which help them become better leaders. So you have to focus on, as when you trained as a pilot, what did you learn, right? So you have to that is how you can build those things in your narrative. Alberto can has asked, can you shed some light on importance of international undergraduate GPA in assessment of one's application? um, is low international GPA looked upon down as compared to domestic? So domestic versus international, okay? Whenever you research a school, always look at how much percentage is the incoming class domestic and how much is an international. For example, Harvard Business School's incoming international class is 37%. Of that 37%, you can only imagine how much is, you know, something for Middle East, something for, Africa, something for South America, Australia, India, China. So you're competing in a very small pool, and you're going to be compared against your, people of the same nationality. So you will not be compared with a domestic US applicant. That's number one. Your international institution and GP and everything is going to be covered against people who apply from your country. So it's not going to be looked down upon, but it will be compared with your other peers. For example, Indian male engineer, overrepresented category, usually an 8 point plus GPA is recommended. Uh, Below that, it's tough. It's tough at top business school, M7 schools is what I generally say, because it's just one statistic. Can you make it up with your GMAT score? Sure. But if you're going neck to neck with someone, right? um where everything is similar, and there's just a one thing where one has a higher GPA and you have a lower, then of course that person gets additional points. But like I said, do the MBA math, um, do HBS score or Wharton fundamentals, the business fundamentals course on Coursera to show your business readiness, right? Because they are trying to assess you. They're not trying to assess whether someone is smart or dumb. They're trying to assess, can you handle the rigor of the academic component of an MBA program. So long as you're going to be able to demonstrate that, that's fine. Um, all right. Um, all right. Rudra, are really looking forward to working with the red pen. Any ideal time scale to follow for round one? Deadline? Yeah. So in the presentation, you can, when you see the recording, Rudra, you can pause the recording. There is a slide which I put together for key timelines across different application components. Where should you be? Um, so you can follow that as a general guideline. You can do that. All right, I think those are all the questions that we have. And if you have any follow up questions, do reach out to us at team.mba at the redpen.in. As I said, that do thank you so much for sharing this. Do see that there's a link over here to register for our webinar series on building a strong application with us, MBA application for fall 2022 applications. We will be covering each of these application components in depth every Saturday, going on for a good 1.5 months. So please register, and then hopefully you have more information than you gain today. Okay, there are two more questions. I'll just take them. How does a chartered accountancy degree looked upon for European schools? It's a strong degree. It's definitely a strong degree. You'll definitely get brownie points, whether it's European schools or your US schools, definitely. Um, so yeah, admissions officers know. So just so that you know, guys, uh, business school admissions do have regional representatives who help them understand local institutions. and local GPA. So an 8-point GPA of an engineer is not going to be compared with a 6-point GPA of a chartered accountant. It doesn't work that way. So regional representatives do help admissions officers understand where you stand. So don't worry about that. Do you think working at a startup is looked down upon? Is it considered equal to others? Depends what you do at the startup, right? If you are working with the co-founder, building amazing products, rolling up your sleeves and working across verticals, great experience. And if you're able to show impact, leadership, growth, scale, it's that's great. I feel also with the startup, nowadays it's become a thing for people to say, okay, let me just join a startup so it may look cool on my application. So you have to, of course, look at impact, but with the startup that you join, try to understand what problem are you trying to solve, right? um, we worked with someone, one of my favorite applicants from last cycle. He was working at an organization which was an HR tech organization, solving the issue of diversity in talent acquisition and talent management through data. And that is a very crucial problem that we need to solve today in the workforce, in the global workforce. So think about those things. Think about what your voice is going to be in that business school classroom. Think much bigger, think much broader. That picture, visualize yourself in a business school classroom, and think that how will you like saying that I work at so and so and this is the work I do. Probably that will help you make that decision. Yeah. All right, thank you everyone, and do reach out to us for any follow up questions. And until the next session, have a good weekend. Thank you. Bye bye.